Hi guys, EV Daryl back with you. I wanted to make this video. This one's kind of off the cuff type thing. We arrived home last night after our vacation. We took about 10 or 12 days on our road trip to South Florida to our condo and back. And we took our 2023 Chevy Bolt 1LT electric vehicle. So I don't even know how I want to start this, but it was an extremely difficult road trip. You might be able to tell it from some of my videos. First of all, I want to talk about the car itself. The car drove phenomenally. I mean, it cruises very well at 75 with the cruise on or higher. It handles well, it's very comfortable inside too. Everything was fine about the car from the comfort level. My wife was saying she slept a couple of times while we were driving, and she was very comfortable as I was. So from that end of it, it was fine. We went into this knowing it was going to be a little bit extra charging time. We knew that. I knew that the maximum it can draw is 56 kilowatts. If the battery temperature is perfect and the battery level at a low state of charge is just perfect, you can get 56 kilowatts for a short time, and then it'll taper to 55, 54. It'll stay in the low 50s for a while. You can sometimes get that up to 50%, maybe 55%. And then it even starts, at 55 kilowatts is terrible of a charge that it's receiving. And then the taper begins. Pretty soon it's 44. Then pretty soon it's down to drawing 37 kilowatts. And on some of our trips, we had a couple of sections that we had to go at least close to 200 miles. I needed a high state of charge, over 80%, to get to that. So we sat at most chargers for about 45 minutes to 60 minutes. That's a terrible, and I knew that in advance. Nothing surprised us. I have researched it. I have listened to people about it. You can take it on a road trip. I heard a couple of the big YouTubers. You can take it on a road trip, but you don't want to do that very often, and blah blah blah. But from some of the naysayers I'd seen out there that road trip, you could never take a Chevy Bolt on a road trip. You could never go. It's a terrible charger. It can't happen. You can't do it. So my wife and I were just talking, and we said, you know what, we're going to go down for 10 or 12 days. Let's just take the Bolt, because it can't be done. It might take months to charge. We can't do it. I've heard the hype. So we did it. Not fun. But, we took 2 days down and 2 days back. And most people that are traveling, it was 1,250 miles each way. Most people that are traveling 1,250 miles are going to take 2 days anyway. Okay? We used to do it all the time in my Prius. Sometimes we'd drive to Dalton, Georgia, which is halfway, about 625 miles, spend the night, drive the next day, the other 625. Sometimes we'd drive 800 in a day in the Prius, get down to southern Georgia, and either nap in the car for a couple hours and get back up, and then we just drive on in. Or get a hotel, but the next day then you just got a short, 5-hour drive, maybe 4 or 5 hour drive in. This was 2 long days. And I documented them. You can check the videos. They were long. We're talking 12 to 15 hour days. Especially when you have to stop. We stopped 7 times to charge on the way to Florida. And if you have to charge for 45 minutes or an hour each time, think of the hours that just tacks on and tacks on and tacks on. I'm not used to road tripping that way. My wife and I a lot of times would drive straight through with my Prius and maybe we'd stop for a nap somewhere for an hour or two and then go. We just would want to get into South Florida. So this was a different kind of a road trip. I knew it was going to take 2 days. We planned it. I scheduled it. I had all the apps. Everything was fine. But it is definitely not a road trip car. It's not fun. I wouldn't recommend it. We are most likely not going to take it down to Florida this winter for January, February, and March. Part of that is because Uber doesn't really make it simple for me to drive. That's what I do here in Illinois. I drive for Uber part-time. And if I do that in Florida, they want me to start over from scratch and fill out all the forms, get a background check, start basically like I'm moving to Florida when I just would want to drive for a few months, do some airport runs and such. So that was kind of an aggravation to start with, so we probably won't even do that. But it's so fresh in our minds. My wife and I were talking this morning. I mean, mentally, it was a stress. Spiritually, it was a stress. It is very difficult to road trip a Chevy Bolt. I can do it. We've done it. You can see in the past, we did 2,700 and whatever it was, almost 2,800 miles. We did it. But it wasn't always the car's fault. And that leads me into number 2. I charged either on there's several different networks, charging networks out there. I charged either on the EVgo network, which I've got EVgo credits. So I've got like I had $500 worth of credit to use. So I might as well use it where it's available, but that's not everywhere. So then I referred to Electrify America, which is the largest charging network in the United States next to Tesla. But it is the number 1 network for CCS chargers, which is what my car is, the Volkswagen ID4, the Hyundais, the Kias. Every car but a Tesla uses a CCS charger in their car currently. The future, that might change to where they're going to have Tesla ports in their car, which will fix a lot of it. But that's why I wanted to get into the charging networks. EVgo, when we used it, was flawless at every place that we used it, that we were able to use it. So when we left here, we drove down to a suburb off of Route 4, Shiloh, Illinois. I used an EVgo, very first one. It was 168 miles, I think, or ballpark from here. Used the EVgo. It was perfect. Started right up, hooked right up, boom, it charged at the very slow rate like that my car charges. Then when it was done, our next stop was in Paducah, Kentucky. Well, EVgo doesn't have a charger there. So I went to an Electrify America in Paducah. So we had no issues on the way down. I went in, it was empty. I pulled in, it fired right up. It worked like it was supposed to. And I have a membership. The monthly membership, you have a $4, which is going to $7 a month, but a $4 membership. I had that. And then we were done. Then my next idea was another 150 miles down the road was to go to Nashville near Titan Stadium and charge at an EVgo charger. Well, there was a ball game going on, a preseason football game I was not prepared for. So we couldn't get in there to charge there. So I then went to an Electrify America about 5 miles away. They had one in Nashville. I went there, and it was a good one. Willowbrook Commons. There were 6 or 8. There were 6 chargers, I believe, there. And we were able to get in. There was a few other cars charging, 2 or 3, but we got in, got charged, and we moved on down the road. So then after that, we went to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we stayed at a Hampton Inn in Chattanooga, which had an EVgo charger in front, fast charger. So I charged up there, and we spent the night. We had driven close to 600 miles. We spent the night. The next morning, which was a Saturday morning, We took off and we went from Chattanooga. I drove down to mile marker 218 on I-75 in Georgia, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the town, but they had an EV Go charger also, and it was in a mall, parking lot, stores, restaurants, everything. Again, hooked right up, started charging, it was phenomenal. It worked like a charm. We got done there, and that was mile marker 218. I drove 202 miles down. I think it was exit 16. Don't hold me to that. To Valdosta, Georgia. This is where the problems began. It was an Electrify America charging. I rolled in. They only had 4 chargers, which I found out later is the norm. They only have 4 charging units. Not like a Tesla, not 8 or 12 or 16 or whatever. 4. One of them was broken, so 25% of their chargers was broken, so only 3 worked. But there were 4 people there. Somebody was already waiting, and then I was the 5th person to wait to get in. So one guy couldn't get his working, so he took about 15 minutes to try it wouldn't activate, wouldn't start. So now you're down to 2 of them working. One lady decided to stay there with her Mustang Mach-E. She thought she needed to charge to 98%, which it's her prerogative, even though by the time you're at 98%, all cars are charging really slow. Really, there's no use to stay there at 98%. So she tied up a charger an extra 20, 30 minutes. So the person who was ahead of me waiting in line was also driving a Chevy Bolt. He got frustrated. He just got very upset, very frustrated, and he finally just stormed off, even with his charging port open. He was standing there and he just left it open. He just took off out of the parking lot. He was frustrated. Well, 5 minutes later, the lady who was charging at 98% decided that was enough charge. So she left. Well, I pulled in, and for those of you that don't know this, Electrify America has 150 kilowatt chargers and 350 kilowatt chargers. She was on a 350 kilowatt charger, which if you have one of the monster cars that can handle a ton of charge early, that's what you want. You want that if your car is going to take 250 kilowatts, you want to be on a fast charger. Well, Chevy Bolts are the slowest of the slowest fast charging vehicles out there. I've said this over and over, but that was the only one open. So I pulled in, I started charging on it, but I got nervous because I'm thinking I'm taking up a 350 kilowatt charger, drawing 50 kilowatts off of it. So I kept coming out of the grocery store. We were in a Walmart and checking on it, and no one was waiting. If someone would have been waiting, I would have tried to work out something else. And after about 30 minutes, one of the people who was on the 150, who was driving I think he was driving like a Kia EV6, they left. Well, I moved over to a 150, which is the proper etiquette. That's the slowest of the fast chargers that Electrify America has. So I moved over to there. Nobody was waiting. There was, thankfully, but I moved over to there and finished my charge. I had to go another half hour. I needed another full charge because we were going a longer distance again. So I charged for about an hour there, and there was nobody else on. There was an opening then, and it was fine. So when we left there, we made it to Bushnell, Florida, north of Tampa. I wanted to get to Tampa, but this was about 80 miles north, I think, or so of Tampa, 60 or 80 miles north of Tampa. Bushnell had an Electrify America. It worked fine. It worked flawlessly. It worked great. We got there, I don't know what time in the afternoon, or 5 or 6 in the evening, whatever it was, and it worked perfect. We charged there, and if I remember right, that may have been my last charge. I think we drove right on in down to Port Charlotte, Florida. I want to say we did. I think that was the final charge on the way down. Then we had a great 7 or 8 days in Florida running around. I was getting some charge down there at some of the local dealerships and such. So then the return trip happened, and today is Wednesday, September 6th. We headed home on Labor Day. My wife told me there might be some traffic. guys, pay attention to what your wife says. There was traffic. So anyway, we left bright and early Monday morning. And on the way back, there was a charger in, I think it's Brandon, Florida. That was my first charge. I wanted to try, it was an EV Go, and I wanted to see how it worked. I hadn't seen it before. Flawless, worked like a charm. There were 6 chargers there, and they were able to split chargers. Now, no one was charging when I stopped, but on one charger, you could split it, and 2 people could charge. Now, I assume it was a 100 kilowatt charger from EVgo. It would have only given you 50 and 50. I assume. I don't know that for a fact, but it worked flawlessly. It was that Ultium. I don't know. Ultium was the brand of that was written on the charger, and it worked perfect. Anyway, we got done there, and then I noticed that Gainesville, Georgia would have been a good place to charge, but the Electrify America charge was grayed out on the map. Unavailable. So we couldn't charge there. So I had to go all the way up to Lake City in northern Florida to do that. Well, we made it, and there were 2 other people charging at Lake City, and it was Electrify America also. I got in and started charging, and at that time, 2 more cars came in. It was full. Nobody else could charge there because there was only 4 chargers. So it was full, and then 2 people had to wait. Well, one person got tired of waiting and took off and left. I don't know where they went. So we got charged there, and then we took off from Lake City, and I went up to mile marker 218 on the way home, which I knew was a really good charger. That's the EVgo charger on I-75 in Georgia, south of Atlanta, about 30 miles south of Atlanta. Plugged in. There was 2 other people charging. I rolled in, filled up the last charger, and started charging. And it said you could do split charging on that too. It was the Ultium brand again on the charger. But there was no need. There's only 3 parking spaces, 3 units, but it says 6 people can charge here. So I don't know how you get 6 people in 3 parking places, but right next to it was 12 Tesla superchargers, the real network. As you can tell, I'm a little bit biased. But anyway, so I got in, we charged there. That was great because I wanted to get through Atlanta. Well, there was a crash in Atlanta, a lot of traffic, a lot of problems. We got stuck in Atlanta for an hour sitting, which my car does great while it's sitting. It's not using hardly any energy at all. So we made it from there to Chattanooga. Chattanooga, we decided to stay at the Hampton Inn again, and with the charger in the front, EVgo out front. We charged there, worked like a charm, charged up, got a good night's rest. Next morning we took off early, made it to Nashville. I wanted to try the EVgo charger at the Titan Stadium, NFL Stadium parking lot. Pulled right in, nobody was charging, it was perfect. We got right in, it fired right up, it charged perfect. Then we got there, we went from Nashville to Paducah. I rolled in Paducah, and I pulled up, there was a Rivian R1T truck charging. I pulled up next to him, the screen was blank, which means it's out of order. Then the next screen said unavailable, like it was broken, had 2 big X's on it. Then the 4th one, which is they only got 4, it had a Chattanooga charger for Nissans and a CCS charger for my car. There was a big X unavailable on the Chattanooga charger. But the gentleman with the R1T was leaving, and he said, "Hey, I just finished up, I'm leaving, you better take this one. This is the only one I know that's working." I charged, we got charged up, it worked fine. We got through it. Then we went back to Shiloh or O'Fallon, Illinois, charged up where we charged up on the way down at the EVgo. It's at a Commerce Bank parking lot. But it worked like a charm, hooked up, we got a charge, then we drove all the way home. We got done. But what I wanted to get to the point was Electrify America is not happening. It's not working. You're the largest charging network next to Tesla and I'm not going to lie, I can't pull any punches. It's a joke. If you've got 4 chargers and 25% of them are broken, you only have 3 chargers. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of EVs driving on the road that are not Teslas. You've got to have a network. 3 chargers is not going to work. Mentally, I was frustrated. I was nervous knowing that, Gainesville was broken. They're just all broken. It had it on their webpage. We're not working. It's not here. We're not working. Okay. What is a guy to do if you don't have a Tesla? Well, you got to go like we did. You got to try to finagle something else and work around to find a way to get there. That is way too much mental strain. And as I said earlier, even a spiritual strain. I was praying several times that we would make it to the next charger, or that there would be an available spot at the next charger. That is too much strain. That is way too much stress. So I'm ranting, and I'm probably, when I get done here, I'm going to contact Electrify America, and I'm going to cancel my membership. This just can't happen. You can't road trip with Electrify America. It just can't. You just can't. People talk about their cars, F-150 Lightnings, and there was another stop in there that I forgot to add. Cordell, I think it was, Georgia. Yeah, down in southern Georgia was Cordell, Georgia, and we were coming home. I'm sorry to skip back. I rolled in on there. One of the 4 chargers was broken in there, and there was a Ford Lightning truck charging, and then there was a Volkswagen ID4 charging. And I took up a 350 charger. That was the only one available, and then other people started pulling in, and I felt terrible because one of them was broken, which was a 150 that was broken, and then I'm tying up a fast charger, but I need to get charged to get on down the road. But that brings me to my final argument. All of these car companies who are giving you 2 free years of Electrify America, 3 free years of Electrify America, the lady in the ID4 in Cordell, Georgia, she lived real close. She just goes because it's free. Okay, she took up a fast charger where people need this because she gets free charging. She's not going to charge at home and run up a $3 electric bill. She's going to completely charge for free. The same thing happened on the way down in Bushnell, Florida. Nobody was charging when we arrived, but a lady pulled in a Volkswagen ID4. She got out with her pantsuit from like a bank or something like that. She went into the store and bought some fresh fruit. And as she was saying, to just take home, I live down the road. Okay. She's charging for free on the Volkswagen, 2 free years. And I don't blame them, but what these are for people who are traveling. That's the point. And if you're going to get one of the 4 broken, and you're going to have one person charging for free who's going to go get 30 minutes of free charging every other day, or they're going to go whenever they feel like it, you're tying up a terrible network. And I don't mean to be blunt, but you're tying up a charger with a terrible network, one of them for the free charge. So I'm just going to finish up with that, and I'll let you know. So the combination of my car being a slow, fast charging car and the terrible network of Electrify America is where it's at. That there's no use to road trip. I don't care what kind of vehicle you have, unless you've got time. If you don't mind stopping for an extra hour, if they're tied up and there's a line, and if it's broken, and if you don't mind that, that's fine. When I road trip, I like to road trip. I really like to road trip. So just the stress of that is too much. So I'm either going to upgrade. My wife keeps advising me I should upgrade to a Tesla, because everywhere I spoke to Tesla owners at a couple of places that had them next to us, and they are, it's the navigation system's phenomenal. It tells you in advance when they're full. If you're rolling in and you're going to the next charger that's 150 miles down the road, it will tell you 12 of 12 chargers or 16 of 16 are full, even before you get there. And then, as most people said, well, we'll just bypass that one because there's another Tesla charger down the road. It wanted me to stop with 22%. I can go down the road and pull in with 10% at the next supercharger. So it's just, it's so far advanced. It appears to be a decade ahead of everybody else. As I've mentioned before, Elon's got it going on. I mean, it's a no-brainer. So my wife has been telling me, if you want to upgrade, it's time to upgrade, you know. But I tell you that to tell you this. I have really made some videos about how great my car is as an Uber driver. It's phenomenal. And for in-town driving and day-to-day driving and short, I mean, even trips over to Indianapolis, 200 miles and back, nothing. Chicago for pizza and back, not a big deal. That's probably 95 to 97% of all the driving we do is local. I can get 300 miles on a charge with regenerative braking. The bottom line is, if you're going to take a road trip, you don't want to be on Electrify America network, and you don't want to take a Bolt. Okay? Can be done. We proved that. No big deal. But it's very stressful. And those two stressors together is too much for me. And I probably, most likely, I will not take another road trip with the Bolt. So, that's all I got to say. I appreciate all your listening and letting me rant. If you would please like and subscribe, and if you have any comments, leave them in the section below, and I'll try to get back with you as soon as I can. But everybody be safe, have a blessed week, and take care.